I was the first woman finisher at Boston before women were allowed to be legal entrants in 69, 70, and 71. There had been a woman who preceded me, Roberta Gibb, we call her Bobbi, and she was the first woman in 66, 67, and 68. In 1972, women were allowed to be legal, and that was not a doing of the BAA, it was the doing of the AAU, Amateur Athletic Union, now called USA Track and Field. They're the governing body for the sport of running and some other things. And in 1972, they finally allowed women to be legal entrants at Boston and at other marathons. This was sort of a fait accompli because women had been running marathons all over the country, without a number. In 2022, it was 50 years since we were first legal, and the BAA and one of their chief sponsors, Adidas, made a special deal out of the 5 of the original 8 of us they could find. Put us up at a hotel, got us all kinds of gear, ceremonies, interviews, media attention. It was sort of fun. But if you wondered how this started, how women in marathoning, what their history was, let me tell you my story. This mild-mannered fellow here and I have been married for 66 and a half years. And he's a really sweet fellow to put up with all of this. We were married in December of '55 when he was a grad student at MIT, and I was in the Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, and we lived in Providence. When I graduated in 1958, we moved to Cambridge, so he shouldn't have to commute anymore. That was only fair. After we moved here, and within the next couple of years, we suddenly had 2 children. Well, you know how that works. 2 children within 15 months. One day, Larry looked at me and he said, "Are you happy with the shape you're in?" Well, I really wasn't. I almost felt I had no control over my body at all. He said to me, "The kind of shape you're in by the time you're 30 will determine your fitness for the rest of your life." Now, how could I argue with that? He's an MIT graduate. That question started us on a partnership in aerobic lifetime sports: running, cross-country skiing, and orienteering. The thing about these shoes is some of them have metal studs in them, like studded tires, so that you can grasp your sport, grasp the leaves and ground when you're in the woods. We also, in 1962, started our sports club, the Cambridge Sports Union. It was the first club in the greater New England area that included men and women. Let's go back to when I was a teenager in the 1950s. There was such a time, you know. Sports were for boys. Girls were not supposed to sweat. I mean, that was unfeminine. The AAU limited girls' races to 220 yards. Anything more might be damaging to their delicate insides. The TV program that epitomized family life was Father Knows Best, where mother stayed at home and watched the kids. Larry wanted more than that for his wife, God bless him. And so, following up on this, I should get fit, we went down to the MIT track and brought our kids with us, of course. They sat on some dirt piles beside the track while he and I did laps around the track, so they could see us and we could see them. Eventually, I was able to do 2 whole miles in one piece. There, I said, I've done it. Okay, he said, now you have to do it faster and go farther. Why? Because that means you're getting fitter. Well, I wanted to be fitter, so I had to do that. Larry coached me. He coached the young men who joined our club and based his coaching on the programs of the most respected, best coaches of the day, from Europe, from the US, from New Zealand even. In 1964, I was able to run 5 miles in one piece. But try as we might, even with Larry running with me, I couldn't run at 8-minute a mile pace. I couldn't break 40 minutes for 5 miles. Well, he said, let's go on a road race. A road race has lots of runners, and they'll pull you along. It could be worth 40 seconds a mile. That sounded good. Just go on a road race and suddenly you're faster? All right. So we went to a road race in Marlborough, Mass., a 5-mile handicap race with a babysitter for the kids. And a handicap race is one where the slow runners start first, and the faster runners are arrayed in lines behind them. Somebody has figured this all out. So I was on the start line with 2 old men and 2 young boys, and off we went. And as the lines of faster runners caught up and passed us, the guys were wonderful. I mean, I was the only woman in the race. All the rest of the runners were guys. They were terrific. Hey, you're doing good. Keep it up. Nice going. They were all very welcoming. And if they'd been different, I might have had a different experience in the race. But this was wonderful. And I learned that long-distance runners respect each other's training. You can't cover the distance if you haven't done the training. It's as simple as that. So in the 60s, all through the 60s, we began to run.
Didn't finish the road race.
Oh. I did better than 8-minute pace. I was 38:37. But really, it was such a life-changing experience, not only to be in this race, but to have the guys welcoming me. Gee, I wish my wife did it. I wish my girlfriend did it. You know, that felt awful good. And all through the 60s, we would go into various road races. The race organizers, I never tried to enter officially. I knew that wasn't allowed. I just wanted to improve. The organizers and the other runners got used to seeing us. A friend recently said to me, when you ran in 1969 in the Boston Marathon, did you have to jump out from the bushes? As Bobbi Gibb did in her first time. Were you afraid they would pull you off the road, as happened to Kathrine Switzer, who was wearing a number when she shouldn't have? And the answer, of course, was no. The organizers and the runners had seen us for years running. They knew I was seriously training and that it wasn't a publicity stunt. So it worked quite well, and I was getting fitter and fitter. In 1964, we watched the Winter Olympics, and there was no U.S. Nordic ski team entered. Nordic is...
No women?
No women, sorry. No women's Nordic ski team entered. Nordic is cross-country skiing, also jumping and stuff like that. Women don't now jump, but they didn't at the time. And Larry looked at me and he said, no American women. They're softies, you're not. We're going to try it. So we ordered skis. You just couldn't buy them out of a store. You ordered racing skis, and we went into a race and didn't really know what we were doing. There's a certain technique to cross-country skiing. We had no idea what it was. And over the next few winters, we would go into ski races, watch some of the really good people and try to imitate them, and we got a little better. I was the only woman in most of the ski races. Eventually, after a year or so, some teenagers began to join us. And I hoped that in 1968 there would be a women's Nordic team in the Olympics. There wasn't. But in the summer of '68, they named a women's U.S. Nordic team. Me at 32 and 4 teenagers half my age. And we all went to a training camp in Colorado in the fall, an on-snow training camp to train, and from which a team would be picked to go to Europe for winter races. And I was assured that even though I was the only woman, that it was not going to be only a junior team. They lied. It was only a junior team. However, that was the winter of '69, and that gave me 2 months to train for Boston. Larry ran with me, and I'm I'm telling you, it was quite exciting to turn from Hereford onto Boylston Street and see the finish way ahead of me. That was very good. And my time was a 3:22:46, which is fair, not terrific. Well, that's too bad. My time is short. In 1970, again, they didn't pick a women's Nordic team. So I had 3 months to train for Boston. That and a cool day produced my best Boston Marathon time, 3:05:07. In 1971, at 20 miles, suddenly Nina Kuscsik passed me, running with some guys from New York. And I thought, oh, I'm in second now. I don't like that. So I sped up somehow and passed her on Beacon Street, and then I got half a minute ahead of her and maintained that to the end. It was a slightly warmer day than the year before, and my time was a 3:08:30. Still not under 3 hours. Well, 5 weeks later, there was what's called the Plotters Marathon in Brockton. And this was for runners who had not yet broken 3 hours. So Larry said, this would be a good race for you to go in. So he ran with me, and he prodded me, and he encouraged me. And with a half mile to go, he said, Sara Mae, if you're going to do it, you got to do it now. So somehow I managed to speed up, crossed the finish line, and fainted 3:00:35. This was our pattern. Ski races in the winter, running races of various kinds in the non-snow parts of the year. Now, I just turned 86 on Saturday. Larry will be 88 in the fall, and he doesn't look it. We still cross-country ski, although we don't run because arthritis on our knees doesn't like running. But we cross-country ski, and in the non-snow parts of the year, we do roller skiing on the local bike path, and we have a Nordic track, and we do some weight training and so on. We do 70 minutes a day at least. Well, this is what they gave us this year to mark 50 years of women being legal in Boston. It's heavy. I don't want to wear it. Now, finally, in 1984, after much lobbying by men, and who were our biggest supporters, and women, and a threat of a court suit, the Olympics in LA in '84 included a women's marathon, and Joni Benoit Samuelson, whose birthday is today, she's 64, do you believe that? Whose birthday is today, won in a spectacular race the first Olympic marathon. Now, when Larry started me running, he said, you could be a pioneer. And I really didn't understand what that meant. But today, when I see women running through the streets, older, younger, and nobody thinks anything of it, it's just very normal, I thought, well, Larry's guidance has helped, and my efforts have helped pass the torch to the next generation. So running for health, for fitness, and to improve yourself is what's happening. And it's his fault.